Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in today. My name is Brian Chris with DR McNatty, and today I want to talk with you about an often overlooked but very important part of your Unifier deployment, and that is the business process documentation. The BPs make up the catalyst for the overall solution within Unifier, providing the ability to create forms for data capture as well as workflows for collaboration. The challenge with organizations is that within these business processes, they can be very intricate and detailed, and the sophistication in these is what becomes a challenge for the documentation. So for example, here we're going to look at a business process for potential change orders, and using the conventional ways to document a BP, I would come and maybe select the initiate request, and I want to look at the properties and the options. So I may take a screen capture, close this window, put that onto, say, a Word document as part of the documentation. But to go beyond that, I'm going to want to document maybe the makeup of the form itself and note the blocks. I also want to have a look at the data elements that are included in the BP and in the form. And further detailed in here, I have the elements and the properties. So with each of these, the process may be to capture a screenshot, close, and put all of these into a Word document for people to use to access what is in the design of this business process. So as you can maybe see here, I've only looked at the one for initiate request. There is another action form for review as well as the view form. We have detail forms, workflows, and for each of these elements of our business process design, there are going to be unique attributes that we want to capture as part of your documentation. Now, documentation is important for any Unifier deployment, particularly because what the documentation represents is it represents the foundation for future development, because it's important to know what we are building on top of, whether this is a change to a report or a new business process or a modification that we want to make. Some of the challenges that we see with the current documentation practices is they're done only once, and after that point they're not up to date. Often this type of documentation is the deliverable, the final deliverable for, say, a new implementation, but it's not kept up to date. And as you could imagine, as I was going through and looking at what we would do to capture the screens and transport those on to, say, a Word document, it's very possible that I could have missed a screen or a form, and my documentation could be incomplete. This may also not make it readily available for developers. So for a Unifier developer, this information is going to be important before making new changes. And finally, and probably the biggest risk, is the fact that the design and configuration of a business process, that knowledge should belong to the organization that owns Unifier and not to any one individual. So without keeping your documentation current and accurate, it is hard for organizations to maintain this where an individual has all the knowledge, but that knowledge should reside with the organization. So to help maybe combat that, our team at DR McNatty has developed what we call our Unifier Documenter. And so what we do with the Unifier Documenter is we take all those discrete little screens that we saw in looking through the potential change order business process, and we aggregate those into a single place and allow this to be transformed and stored in a digital format. So here's what you can look at as an example. Here's our potential change orders. And over here on the right, I have an icon that says view. And when I click on the view, I can see all of the design elements now in one single location. So here would be the basic properties, the forms of the business process. And as I scroll through the list here, you can see it will take me down to how the blocks are set up, the various fields that are in the forms. And this is set up for our details, our workflows, and any reference processes. And so the Unifier Documenter takes all of this information and brings it together in one location so that it can be easily searched, and the information related to existing business processes can be easily found so that future enhancements or development or changes could be more easily done. Once the business process information is here and it has been aggregated, I can choose to either download the information into an Excel format, or to a PDF. When I choose Excel, I can open up the file. Here is an example of our potential change orders business process. And down below, we have the various tabs that show the information collected for the upper form, detail form, workflows, reference processes, and so on. When looking at the PDF format, here's what the same business process looks like when I export it to PDF. I like this format because I can drill down into these table of contents here on the left side and quickly go without having to scroll through the documents and quickly find elements such as, say, the line items in this section of the business process. So that's a look at how the Unifier Documenter will collect the business process design and configuration into one convenient location for your developers to access in order to start with their changes. I want to talk about another feature. So we've looked at collecting the BP design information. I want to take a look now at this business process for our action items. And here we can see this example. We have a few different versions between 94, 95, and 96. And I'm going to choose this icon on the right that says view difference with the previous version. So when I select this option, I can choose to see here are the BP properties, and we can see now, rather than just looking at the configuration of one single business process, we are looking at the changes that have occurred between versions 95 and 96. So we can see graphically the red was the prior and the green is the new. And so this changes we can see in the date. I can see here the changes on the upper forms, and if I scroll down in this example, we can see that in our action item information, some of the fields have been changed from editable to read only in this latest version. So this is another item that the Unifier Documenter provides, is not just the ability to collect the current information for a business process, but we have this option to compare it to a previous version. And this can be helpful in your testing of any enhancements or changes that you're going to be making. Beyond the business process, you can see there's another area here called Unifier Configuration Data. And so for the Unifier Configuration Data, this can look at some of the configuration beyond just the business processes. So these can include, say, the shell manager, the company workspace rules, any of your UDRs, and I can select various items here and choose Run. And after I've done that, I can go over here to this tab for the logs and see that here are the logs that have been run, and this is where I can say, look at the configuration for custom templates, for an example, and there's an Excel file here that is ready for download, and I will choose Download and open up this Excel file, and here is the configuration data in the Excel format. Our goal in developing the Unifier Documenter was to help organizations gain the maximum value from their Unifier solution. And from the benefits point of view, there are many benefits for using this type of solution to help with your documentation. First and foremost is that your documentation can stay current, which will lead to number two, in that the speed in the development time for enhancements or new business process can be greatly increased. The third bullet point here might be the most important, and that is the fact that the design and configuration of these business processes, this knowledge should be organizational and not individual knowledge, so that organizations can utilize this and keep this as their own proprietary information, and they can utilize that to help with new staff, onboard new staff, or safeguard themselves from any potential turnover. The ability to see changes between design versions can be helpful to expedite any testing. And ultimately, number 5 is where the true value comes for organization, and that is specifically proper documentation that is up to date, current, easily accessible, is going to ultimately save time and money for the organization later on. So we hope that this is something that you might find useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at bchris@drmcnady.com. Or if you have questions about any of our other Unifier solutions or the services we offer at DR McNady, feel free to visit our website at www.drmcnady.com or connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you for tuning in.